Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is
Good
Amanda
morning.
Dembeck of New Jersey STIC's executive team. I'm also the manager of the Njdot Bureau of Research, which is charged with administering the New Jersey STIC program of activities. Thank you very much for joining us today for our very first quarterly meeting of 2022. I welcome and encourage you all to show your faces and remind you to please mute yourselves unless you're speaking. And we'll be monitoring the chat in the event that there are any questions raised along the way. And after Helene's FHWA updates, excuse me, I put together an interactive poll to solicit some feedback from you all. So I encourage you to participate by having your cell phone handy or by pulling up a browser window on your computer and log into menti.com. And when we get to that portion of the agenda, we can give you the code to plug in, and then we've got like some warm-up questions before we actually get into the survey. Okay? All right, so now to kick things off, I'd like to welcome my director, Andrew Swords. Andy is the director of the Division of Statewide Planning and is standing in for Assistant Commissioner Mike Russo, who is on vacation and unfortunately could not be here today. So welcome, Andy.
Thank you, Amanda. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, if you could speak up just a little bit.
Okay. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Amanda. And on behalf of Assistant Commissioner Russo, I'd like to welcome you all to the first quarter 2022 STIC meeting. The State Transportation Innovation Council has become a really important forum for transportation excellence in New Jersey. So as you can see from the agenda, we bring together really great content from several different transportation disciplines. But I think the key is the diverse and the talented membership of the STIC itself. So you can see right here on this graphic here, we have federal, state, MPO, county, municipal, private sector, and university representatives. So all of these agencies, all of these people from different perspectives bring a great deal to the table, and that's part of what makes this group so successful. So looking a little further at today's agenda, if you only stayed for, let's say, the first hour, you would still get a great deal of information because first we're going to have a federal highway update from Helene Roberts. And Helene, I just want to thank you for your ongoing support and leadership and guidance of the STIC. It would truly not be the same without you. I think we could all agree on that. And in addition to that, we're also going to have updates from each of the four core innovation area teams, all of whom are doing great work. So we're looking forward to that. But I hope you'll all stay until the end of the meeting because we have two special presentations today. The first is on a new tool to provide traffic alerts for commercial vehicle drivers. For this presentation, I'm pleased to have Sal Cowan, who runs the Transportation Mobility Division at Njdot, as well as Amy Lopez from INRIX and Mark Nichols from Drivewise. For the second presentation, it's great to have Andrew Tenard, the Assistant Commissioner of Transportation Operations, Systems, and Support at the department, to make a presentation on a groundbreaking new project right here in Trenton called Trenton Moves. I'm not going to steal any more of Andrew's thunder, but you'll hear what I'm talking about. So I want to thank all of the speakers in advance for being here today and taking the time to contribute to what makes the STIC so successful. And I also want to particularly thank Amanda and all of her staff, without whom none of this could happen. So on that note, thank you all very much for coming today, and let me turn it back to Amanda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So at this time, I'm happy to finally be able to announce and welcome our newest staff member, Brandy Chapman, whose first full day on the job is actually today of all days. So that's perfect timing, right? She's wrapped up her orientation and is now joining us live for the first time in her new role as NJDOT's Innovation Coordinator. So hello, Brandy. And so the creation of the NJDOT Innovation Coordinator position was inspired by many other state DOTs, like who have embraced innovation as one of their core missions. And through my experiences as the State Transportation Research Board representative and a member of the AASHTO Research Advisory Committee, I learned that having dedicated innovation staff is extremely beneficial. So I want to thank Andy Swords, Mike Russo, and Helene Roberts of FHWA for listening and supporting me when I asked to create a position that NJDOT never had. Now, some of you may already know Brandy because she comes to us from another state agency whom we work with regularly, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. At DEP, under the Green Acres program, she served as the New Jersey State Trails Coordinator and single-handedly managed the New Jersey Trails program, including the federally funded Recreation Trails program. She holds a bachelor's degree in environmental studies from Ramapo College of New Jersey and a master's degree in public administration from Rutgers. She received glowing reviews from her references, both of whom were very unhappy that I was stealing her away. So you're going to be seeing more of Brandy over the next coming months and less of me. I'm not going away completely. You can't get rid of me that easily, but she'll eventually become the New Jersey STIC administrator and work directly with Mike Russo and Helene Roberts and many of you to continue our momentum, make improvements, and broaden our reach. So she'll also be working towards becoming NJDOT's innovation subject matter expert and ultimately establish the Bureau of Research as a hub for transportation innovation. And I'm confident that she'll find NJDOT to be a great family to be a part of, and I'm also confident that she'll prove to be a valuable asset to the New Jersey STIC as she has in her former role at DEP. So with that, welcome aboard, Brandy, and enjoy the ride. Okay. So now up next, we have Helene Roberts, our FHWA New Jersey Division Innovation Coordinator and Performance Manager, for some FHWA updates.
Good morning, everybody. I am here to give you the FHWA updates of the quarter. So it looks like we can pass. It's like all the same slides. Okay. So this one is to show you our progress that we made in the second progress report of Everyday Counts Round 6. So you can see the December 2021 progress, and thank you to everybody, the CIA leads and the subject matter experts who gave me the information that I needed to submit this report. You can see we didn't progress in any of the implementation phases in December, but we do continue. I mean, on a lot of those progress reports, there was a lot of activity and a lot of progress made, and I know I work directly in TOPS, and we had a lot to report, but you could see TOPS is already institutionalized. There's nowhere else to go there. So the one thing that I did want to point out with this graphic is that we're halfway through. Well, actually, we're more than halfway through Everyday Counts Round 6 right now. And the whole point of Everyday Counts is to get things implemented quickly within a 2-year period, or at least hope to get near the 2-year goal by the end of the round. And you can see what our 2-year goal is here. You know, we have a lot of institutionalized and some demonstrations, and though we have made some progress, we only have, 2 more progress reports, and it would be really good if we could make some more progress, or at least, in some of these areas, I have to be honest, I think we're further along than we're reporting. So That being said, like crowdsourcing, Sal, I don't know. I don't know because I'm not the subject matter expert, but I think we may be further along in some of these areas than we're actually reporting in the progress reports. Next slide. I don't see any questions about that slide. I'm also monitoring the chat. I'm multitasking here. Was I supposed to do this?
No, I can do this.
Oh, okay.
I can do it as well.
I thought I had another slide. Didn't I have another thing that I wanted to talk about? Oh, this was it, right?
Yeah, this was it. So I just added some flair.
Okay, flair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So FHWA is now actively soliciting ideas for the next round of EDC 7, which will focus on market-ready, underutilized practices or technologies that support key priorities such as safety, equity, and a sustainable and resilient infrastructure. And there's no limit to the number of innovations that may be suggested by an individual or entity. There's a lot of information on this slide. Don't worry, we'll be posting the presentation as we usually do.
Can I add on to that?
Yes, you may. Yep.
So there's no limit to what you can recommend, obviously, but keep in mind that in the end, we pare it down to around 10. We don't want to be all over the place with 100 market-ready yet underused innovation, so we pare it down to about 10 in the end through a very, very, very extensive internal and external vetting process.
And any ideas that you do have can be submitted to this email here on the screen, edcsuggestions@dot.gov. Okay, and so FHWA is interested in the following. Suggested innovations or processes should include a brief description of the proven innovation or process and how the innovation addresses the following areas. We've got the national impact. How will it benefit the transportation system nationally? Game changing. How is it transformative in making our transportation system adaptable, sustainable, resilient, equitable, or safe for all? Urgency and scale. How will it positively impact the environment? Safety, congestion, freight movement, construction techniques, contracting methods, project costs, maintenance, preservation, or emergency response. There's tons there. Whether there are supporting specifications, guidelines, or procedures available to support the technology transfer and national deployment. And finally, if you have a list of locations where the innovation has been deployed, that will also be really helpful.
Can I add on again?
Sure.
Remember that for everyday counts, we're looking for market ready. So basically, the initiative has been tried and used somewhere successfully, but underused innovations. Okay, so if you're picking something that's not like flying cars, that's probably going to get tossed out for now. I mean, maybe in 30 years it might get thrown back in, but for right now it probably would get tossed out. So market ready, they've been actually used, but underused.
Okay. And if it's something that happened that you think is innovative but needs a little bit more research or something like that, send that over to me on the research end, and we'll see how what we can do with that idea. All right. So the New Jersey STIC has been invited to present during the National STIC Network meeting, which is being held in June. June 1st at 2 p.m. We will send the virtual meeting information out to the New Jersey STIC distribution list once we get it. Right now, we only have a save the date. So now, if you have your cell phone ready or another device, log on to menti.com, and here is the code. And I'm going to try my best not to mess anything up and share a different screen. Let's see. I need to bear with me one moment while I set this up. Give you time to log in. Stop sharing. Start sharing. So hopefully everyone is seeing now a black screen with instructions and a code. And I see several people are clicking that little heart at the bottom corner to let me know that they're here. And we've got, let's see, how many people do we have? All right, so we have 103 people currently in the meeting. So these numbers, hopefully if everyone is participating, our number should be pretty high. So keep on doing that. Clicking on that heart as you log in. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple warm-up questions. If you're still logging in to menti.com, there's instructions at the very top of this slide. Here's the address and the meeting code. So warm-up question number 1, this is a word cloud. What one word comes to mind when you hear the word innovation? So you can enter up to 3. Someone said Amanda. Technology, new creative ideas, Steve Jobs, job, startling, cool, change, efficiency, inventive, okay, new, they're all good. There's a lot of creativity.
Somebody put expensive there.
Yes, it can be expensive, but there are some grants that are available to assist with that. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next warm-up question. All right, how many coffees did you drink? Do you drink each day? So we've got 0, don't touch the stuff. 1 is usually enough to get me going in the morning. 2, because, 3 p.m. rolls around and you got that, that crash at the end of the day. 3 or more, caffeine courses through my veins. All right, so looks like 1's usually enough to get most people going in the morning. This last month I've been doing an extra large, but I still have another one later in the afternoon. I'm headed towards the 3 or more caffeine courses through my veins. All right, so I think we're all warmed up. We know how this works. This is fun. So now to the nitty-gritty. So, like I said, we've been invited to the National STIC Network meeting in June. All right. And so Helene and I were talking, and we were talking about possible topics that headquarters, wants us to talk about or was thinking about us presenting. So the first one was virtual New Jersey STIC quarterly meetings. We haven't skipped a beat during the pandemic. We've had all of our virtual meetings, on time. We haven't skipped any, business as usual for New Jersey STIC, and I'm really proud of that, so we could present on that. Then we've got our New Jersey STIC communications plan that we developed through a New Jersey STIC a STIC incentive grant. That was great. We heard about that already a couple quarters ago. And then finally, virtual public involvement. So what Helene and I would like to know from you all here on the council, friends and members, what are the other, if you want to pick one of these, great. If there's any other suggestions that you have. So in this next slide, which topic do you think New Jersey STIC should present to the National STIC Network meeting? So I believe you can select more than one here. And the slide after this, if you have another suggestion, you will be able to write it in.
Looks like virtual STIC quarterly meetings is the #1 hit right now.
A couple suggestions, so I'm happy about that.
VPI is second. They're all pretty close, but the virtual STIC meeting has the most votes.
Right. So we were discussing that, you know, when we do present to the National STIC meeting, it would be great if it wasn't just me up there, you know, discussing these. It would be wonderful if we could have some collaboration from some of our other non-NJDOT STIC council members. So depending on what the outcome is after today's meeting, we might be reaching out to some of you to assist us in developing a presentation and maybe speaking. It's a really great opportunity. New Jersey has never been invited to speak, and so I'm kind of excited about that and a little bit nervous at the same time. But I'm excited to present, you know, and showcase what New Jersey STIC has been able to accomplish.
Yeah, and really, you know, the two could sort of be merged, the virtual STIC meeting and VPI, because I know we, you know, we even had a virtual STIC meeting about VPI, so we could probably even merge the two things or talk about them both.
And at this point, Helene, do you know how much time we're allotted?
I don't. I'm thinking about other national STIC networks meetings, and I'm not sure if there are other states that are presenting it. It almost sounds like we're the only one, because they really, they set the date and time around us.
Okay.
So I think we're the only one. So if that's the case, you know, we're going to have a while, but we have to still talk to headquarters about that. There may be other states.
Okay. So we might be able to touch on a few of these. So let's move over to the next slide, so we can maybe, hopefully the 3 other suggestions, if you have something, please type that in, and they'll pop up on the screen. And even if you didn't select other in the last slide, you can still pop something in. Don't be shy. Traffic safety. None, those topics are great, okay. Specific innovations that New Jersey has worked on, okay. Design build. Weather ready response, coordination with other states. Prior successes in New Jersey if the STIC council members have changed. Okay, best practices and lessons learned. New Jersey commercial vehicle alerts, which we're going to talk about today. Mobility, machine learning. Scroll down. Project management information system expansion. Digital inspections and other traffic safety. Mobility, successful projects. Best practices, examples of process. Weather savvy grants. STEP. Drones. 2 ideas. A combined traffic operations innovation presentation, or 2 Trenton moves. Okay.
Wow, that's a lot. I'm thinking maybe we could somehow work some of those in, but those are a lot of ideas, so thank you.
I mean, we definitely could highlight, you know, maybe even list a few of our specific innovations that we've worked on that are successful. You know, even if we do cover some other topics in depth, we can still kind of go through a couple quick ones. So yeah, this would be great to help us work out this presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, someone else typed in UAS program initiatives, another drone one. Yeah, that's always been a really successful one. Okay. All right, so that is the end of the presentation. I want to thank you all very much for participating. So bear with me really quick as I go back to sharing STIC presentation. Okay, are we back, everybody? All right.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Let me double check really quick. Hang on a second. I want to stop sharing for one moment. Reshare. Complete background sound. Okay. And we're back. Okay. So next we will be hearing from our core innovation area leads, and I'll be advancing the slides for everybody, so just tell me next. First up, we're going to have the safety folks. Please welcome Dan Lasanti and Keith Skilton from our safety CIA team.
Thank you, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. I'm Keith Skilton with the Federal Highway Administration, and with safety, we've been continuing to promote safety, even though it's not tied to a EDC initiative. And today, Dan and I were just going to talk a little bit about the safe system approach and how it ties to complete streets and intersection safety. So I'm not sure if everyone's heard about the safe system approach yet, but the safe system approach represents a shift in how road safety is and will be addressed in New Jersey and aligns with our zero death vision. The vision describes the goal and the safe system describes the approach, while both accept the premise that crashes will not be completely avoided. However, the safe system approach suggests that no person should be killed or seriously injured if a crash occurs when using the road system. And that it's a shared responsibility of all agencies involved to achieve this outcome. For road design, the safe system approach involves managing the circumstances of crashes such that the kinetic energy forces imposed on the human body should not result in death or serious injury. Next slide. So the safe system approach represents a shift in how road safety is and will be addressed. And I'm sorry, forgot to advance my slide. Sorry about that. So there are several ways that safe system principles have already begun to be applied to roadway design in New Jersey to reduce the transfer of kinetic energy resulting from crashes. One primary method is speed management, accomplished through speed limit reductions or various roadway and intersection features that encourage slower interactions between roadway users. Many of New Jersey agencies have adopted complete streets policies that support the implementation of separated bike facilities, road diets, and other measures that lower speeds, separate movements, and reduce crash severity. Alternative and emerging intersections designs may incorporate the safe system principles through removal of conflict points and reduction of vehicle speeds or movement complexity. So today, Dan and I wanted to highlight the innovational link between the safe system approach and the complete streets with a focus on intersections. Next slide.
Hello, everybody. First, before I continue with this presentation, I just want to note that Njdot is currently in the process of assessing its Complete Streets policy. The New Jersey DOT's Complete Streets Design Guide, a planning document and tool, defines intersections as critical parts of the transportation network and streetscape. They are key decision points for all users as they navigate the street network and important activity nodes for community life as well as transportation. Intersections often account for the most serious and frequent conflicts between pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers. Poorly designed intersections can dramatically reduce mobility and safety for all of these modes. However, a well-designed intersection can reduce crashes, improve mobility, enhance public spaces, and tap civic and economic potential. A well-designed intersection facilitates visibility and predictability for all users, reduces motor vehicle travel speeds, and makes complex movements feel safe and intuitive while promoting eye contact between all street users, allowing the street space to be effectively shared by pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers. Next slide, please. Per Njdot's roadway design manual in section 6 for accurate intersections, it acknowledges that intersection design must be careful consideration to minimize conflicts and that is to be looked upon on a case-by-case basis. The manual lists the 4 basic factors that enter into the design to include traffic, physical, economic, and human. Intersection design principles for a safe system minimize conflict points, remove or simplify road users' decisions, minimize impact speeds, and minimize impact angles for all road users. Another way to say this is to look at the 3 S's of including safety into the intersection design, which are simplify, slow, and separate. Next slide, please.
So there are tools to assist designers to help simplify an intersection. They are part of an intersection control or evaluation, or an ICE process, where it's promoted to act as an agency policy. It's a data-driven, performance-based framework to screen intersection alternatives and identify an optimal solution. At the process level, it consists of scoping and alternative development stages. During the first stage, a safety performance for intersection control evaluation, or SPICE tool, is used to perform highway safety manual-based predictive safety analysis of intersection alternatives. During the second stage, a capacity analysis for planning of junctions, or CAPX tool, is used to conduct critical movement analysis to gauge the potential performance of various intersections, and also characterizes bicyclist and pedestrian accommodations. The ICE process is generally done for new intersections or when a substantive change is considered for traffic control or geometry to improve safety. Next slide. So when we talk about speed management at an intersection, we're applying the safe system approach to reducing crash severities when they do occur. The New Jersey DOT's Roadway Design Manual under Section 15 describes traffic calming measures, and the Njdot's Complete Street Design Manual provides additional guidance. One of the simplest things a design can do is consider the effective turning radius of the curb radii. Admittedly, it's a trade-off that balances vehicle operation needs with pedestrian safety, but the safe system approach tells us to focus on moderating the speed of the turning vehicle and reduce the length of the pedestrian crossing distance. So next slide. So one of my favorite applications of the safe system approach is separating users in space and time. Time can refer to exclusive pedestrian signal phases or leading pedestrian intervals, but to focus on significantly reduces the risk of severe crashes under a complete streets application includes pedestrian and bicyclist integration into the intersection through separation. This is best described under the Njdot's Complete Street Design Manual under additional bicycle accommodation tools. Therein, it details a protected intersection. The protected intersection helps maintain separation between modes, which creates a lower stress environment. Built around similar principles as curb extensions, the design incorporates curbed islands at each corner. The islands reduce vehicle speeds and maintain separation for the vulnerable users, where generally it is to accommodate a separated bike trail traversing through an intersection, but the application can be applied to all non-motorists. Next slide.
Applying the safe system approach minimizes the likelihood of the crash for each user by minimizing conflict points, separating users, and applying strict movement control separated in time, and giving users more time to make decisions. Crashes will occur, and when they do, we reduce the probability of a fatal and severe injury outcome and provide for effective emergency response. The results are a complete streets design that enables safe access for all users. Pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, transit riders, and individuals that use mobility devices of all ages and abilities must be able to safely move along and across New Jersey's roads. And over time, the safe system approach is how we will accomplish this. If you'd like to learn more about the safe system approach, FHWA will be offering virtual training hosted by Rutgers Kate LTAP in May. I'd also like to encourage you to attend the Njdot Design Summit in May, where my team, along with Keith, will be presenting on Complete Streets. Next slide. Thank you. Any questions?
If not, you can always put them in the chat too, and we'll monitor that as we go
Yeah.
along.
I don't see anything in the chat right now, just a comment about how the time shift may result in crashes and resulting traffic deaths. That's pretty interesting. We'll have registration open for the 4 workshops very soon. That's from Janet Lilly of Kate. So you guys might want to keep track of that link so that you can register for those workshops.
Thank you, Janet.
All right, thank you, Dan and Keith. Up next, we have our Infrastructure Preservation CIA team. Nunzio Murla of FHWA is now joined by Shivani Patel, who will be taking over the reins from Bob Signora as NJDOT lead. Shivani is an administrative analyst in the Program Management Office in the Division of Capital Program Support. She's already doing a great job of soliciting input from our innovators, gathering progress report data for FHWA, and getting the quarterly meeting slides over to me. So thank you very much, Shivani, and welcome.
No bio for me, Amanda? Okay.
You've been here for a couple quarters, so.
Yeah. No, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Nunzio Murla. I'm a transportation engineer here in the New Jersey division. Along with Shivani, we are the co-liaisons for the Infrastructure Preservation Core Innovative Area. The team has 4 innovations we're currently working on, and I'm going to give an update on each of these as I go through. The first one, as you can see, is digital as-built. Excuse me. Since the last quarter of 2021, there's been a change in leadership for this initiative with the retirement of Mahesh Patel. Bob Marshall is the new lead. Under his leadership, the makeup of the team has expanded to include key programmatic areas, which include in-house roadway design staff, traffic engineering, geometry survey, and the CAD unit, along with local A construction, PMO, and the consultant industry. Also, the direction of the team was significantly revised recently. The team recognized that before digital as-builts can be discussed, the new CAD platform of Open Roads Designer, or ORD, and Open Bridge Designer, OBD, would have to be in place and fully implemented. Currently, the CAD unit has been working with Bentley on a new workspace for both ORD and OBD. Several more key steps must be completed before the new software can be fully implemented by in-house and consultant designers, including development of a new CAD manual. In the upcoming months, the EDC team will aid the CAD unit for this and other related initiatives. Advancing the CAD system is the first order of business, and the work is expected to continue for the next 6 to 8 months. In addition, the Division of Program Support / EDU is working on a paperless as-built process that will be a precursor to the digital as-built process. Next slide. Okay, so the next one is e-ticketing, which improves tracking, exchange, and archiving of material tickets out in the field. Since December 2021, we are still in the development stage, and there have been 2 additional demonstrations from interested vendors. The team is currently deliberating the various demonstrations in order to prepare for the selection of a vendor. In the next months, the team is working on requesting funding for the software, selecting and procuring a vendor, and obtaining an agreement. The team anticipates running parallel projects in the spring in order to test the e-ticketing innovation as a pilot. Initially, the team was going to wait for the new Astroware project software to be implemented before starting to use e-ticketing, but after further discussions with management, the department will begin implementing e-ticketing to be used with the existing software, which is Site Manager. Next slide, please, Amanda. Thank you. The next one is Targeted Overlay Pavement Solutions, or TOPS. Approximately half of all infrastructure dollars are invested in pavements, and more than half of that investment is in overlays. Since December, ultra-high performance thin overlay has been included in the Route 42 project. The specification is finalized and an item number has been created. The team is working on developing state fiscal year 23-24 preservation projects, which will include additional TOPS treatments, continuing investigation of some of the high performance thin overlay failures as well. In the next months, the team plans on developing pavement designs for fiscal year 23-24 preservation projects, which will include additional TOPS treatments. I think I just read that. We will also be working to identify and evaluate candidate projects for enhanced friction overlay and implement this TOPS treatment. Next slide, Amanda. Thank you. Yep, the last one is ultra high performance concrete. UPHC is a fiber reinforced composite material with mechanically and durability properties that far exceed those of conventional concrete materials. Since December, phase 1 of UHPC overlay pilot project testing program was initiated. The testing is at location 1 on 295 and 130, has been completed and cores have been extracted. Cores were extracted in order to measure chloride content and non-destructive testing to assess anomalies or potential for debonding or delamination. The team is currently working on preparing for testing at location 2, which is in Kearney in Hudson County. The team anticipates working on and completing analysis of phase 1 testing and reporting the results in the upcoming months. UHPC for bridge preservation and repair will be incorporated in the new design manual. And next, that is all I have. Any questions? And again, we'll monitor the chat too.
Anything in there in the chat, Helene?
There's nothing in it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nunzio. Next, please welcome Zenobia Fields and Brian Goodson of our Organizational Improvement and Support CIA team.
Good morning. Go
Morning.
to the next slide. So our first innovation deals with strategic workforce development. Where we left off last time is making.
Can you speak up just a little bit, Zenobia? I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me better?
Yes, that's 100% better. Yes, thank you.
Sir. All right, where we left off last time is that we were making progress from our Let's Go workshop where we focus on succession planning. So this particular innovation, it looks at this innovation is about our partnership with contractors and looking more so with construction and operations. So I'm going to talk about the succession planning, but we've also made progress through Kelly Hutchinson, our director of HR, looking at some of the innovations in the industry association's outreach and talking about advancing the apprenticeship program. So if you recall with the succession planning workshop, our mission statement is to create career opportunities for a diverse workforce in terms of disciplines, demographics, and career levels to meet the demands of the evolving transportation skills of tomorrow. With that, we had Vicki. She's been leading the outreach with the industry associations, and that meeting did happen. We're still working on our goals, measures, and timeline. We're looking to resume our regular meetings where we're going to make sure that we invite all of our internal units as well as some additional partner agencies. In the progress, we have had some Tech Talk interviews. Catherine Bull of Voorhees Transportation Center interviewed Kelly Hutchinson about these different outreach techniques, what we're doing with the industry associations. And I understand that webinar is going to be available shortly on the Tech Talk website. Then what we're doing in our overarching products for the succession planning is the SMART goals. Make sure that we have our industry analysis of our action plan. We're going to be advancing our marketing tools, getting buy-in, and working towards tracking this over the next year or so. Moving on to our second innovation, which is virtual public involvement on the next slide. Our virtual public involvement, Brian Goodson with FHWA, our other co-lead on this, he's really been moving the conversation along. We're looking to host a peer exchange where we're going to invite 3 to 5 other DOTs. We would also like to take an opportunity to make sure that the MPOs and some of our other partner agencies are able to present here as well. We're aiming for early summer for this. Some of the things that we're going to focus on talking about is engaging underserved populations when we talk about outreach, and how are we sharing information and getting feedback on a continuous basis. So look for that planning as we continue with the headquarters office with updates. Brian, would you like to add it with this on your lead?
I think you captured everything there. We're still talking to the EDC team and headquarters to try to get this P exchange going. And those, like, you say Zenobia, those conversations are ongoing, and there's more to come on that. So stay tuned.
Brian and Zenobia, who from New Jersey will be invited to the peer exchange? Will it be just DOT people, or will there be other stakeholders invited as well?
So we plan to not only invite the other stakeholders that are part of the team to participate, but also be the presenter. So we're definitely going to be inviting the MPOs and the locals to actively present as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, thank you very much, Zenobia and Brian. Next, please welcome Sue Catlett and Ake Ponsavath of our Mobility and Operations CIA team.
Next slide. There we go. Thank you. So for EDC 6, the next generation TIM, one of the things that we're looking at is doing the computer-aided dispatch. It's a different CAD than what Nunzia was talking about before, just a different perspective of things. Always good to know what the abbreviations stand for. With the CAD integration, what we're trying to do is what the slide says, is we're trying to bring other information into our traffic operations centers so that we can improve incident response. And by improving incident response, we will also create a quicker clearance time. And the quicker clearance time, as you would suspect, would lead to easier mobility going throughout our roadway system. As you all know, have been stuck in traffic at times, all you need is one little thing to bump you off your time schedule and really get you frustrated. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to make things smoother here. The New Jersey State Police is one of our partners in this, and they have installed the CAD system. It's called Motorola Flex. They have installed it and they've been working with it. They are still, I'll use the word, tinkering with some things. And one of the things that we're doing with that is we're trying to have discussions with them as to, how does DOT get involved? How does DOT access the information? What information can we access? Because we certainly don't want a lot of information. We just want the ones that we can deal with. We all know that too much information is just as bad as not enough information. So those are things that we're working on. It's slow going, but we're still knocking on the door and still getting answers. So, and I'll turn it over to Ake for the next part.
Thank you, Sue, for the update. Good morning. Ake Ponsavath with the Federal Highway, New Jersey Division Office, and I will provide an update on Crowdsource. The Njdot has made good progress with Crowdsource to advance operations. Njdot has collaborated with DriveWise, an information service provider providing connected truck services, including a real-time truck alert system to improve safety and reduce commercial vehicle crashes. More information and detail on the scope of the project will come from Sal Cowan and information service provider as a part of today's feature presentation. The project has jumped up to 2 tick marks. Project is currently at the assessment stage. A use case was identified using the alert system to inform truck drivers of stopped traffic and major slowdowns within the corridor. Some potential ideas, some next steps may include reviewing the alert data and comparing it against the traffic incident data. other subsequent next steps also include assessing the performance of the alert system and how well the truck drivers are receiving the advance warning of the traffic incident. And this concludes our update for the mobility operations team and can take up any questions, if any.
So there's just a comment from David Amon from Rutgers in the chat about what they've been doing in the strategic workforce development area. So there's a lot more information with other people that they've interviewed to talk about strategic workforce development. So you might want to take a look at David's comment there. Has a lot more information in case you're interested in the strategic workforce development.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you, Sue and Ake. And we have two feature presentations, and it's time for our first one, brought to you by our Mobility and Operations CIA team. And your speakers today are Sal Cowan, the Senior Director of Mobility, Mark Nichols, Director of Government and Industry Partnerships with DriveWise, and Amy Lopez, Director of Public Sector Services and Smart City Strategy for INRIX.
So is this my part?
I guess. Sure, go ahead. Is this your first slide, Sal?
It is my first presentation in a while, so thank you. I think I'm talking over somebody's air handler, though, because I hear a lot of blowing noises in the background. So thank you, everybody. It's certainly a pleasure to be here at the STIC again. It's a cool team. It's something fun to work on. If you wouldn't mind going back one slide, you stole my thunder, Amanda. I wanted to at least introduce our partners in the effort. Mark Nichols, he's currently the Director of Government and Industry Relations for Intelligent Imaging Systems and DriveWise. Mark retired from the North Carolina State Highway Patrol after achieving the rank of Major. He spent more than 30 years focused exclusively on special operations and motor carrier enforcement. He's one of the leading subject matter experts in commercial vehicles and criminal interdiction for human trafficking. He also served as the commander of the Mobile Field Force, commander of the State Emergency Response Team, and was the governor's liaison to the North Carolina General Assembly. So, Mark, welcome. Amy Lopez, a longtime friend of the department, Director of Public Sector Services and Smart City Strategy at INRIX. She joined INRIX back in 2016 and leads the sales and business development in the eastern region of the state, Canada. Before working with INRIX, she worked with elected officials, senior staff, and executives in the public sector, transportation, and utility sectors. So just wanted to kind of give you guys an overview of who it was you'd be hearing from today instead of this person. So next slide. So the questions come up, who are we working with? DriveWise is the provider of North America's largest way station bypass system, which is called Pre-Clear, and INRIX, who is a provider of real-time traffic data and analytics. Now, for those of you that may not be aware, we held a coordination call with the Eastern Transportation Coalition, of which New Jersey DOT is a member. And we were talking, we brought in multimodal, we brought in planning, we brought in local aid, talking about data. Data is, incredibly important in this day and age. And without it, and without our relationship with the Eastern Transportation Coalition, this would not have been possible. This was coordinated through our existing program, through the data marketplace, where we purchase INRIX data, and DriveWise was one of those ancillary products which we were able to tap into. Next slide. So who's involved? Well, of course, if you're doing anything in the state of New Jersey, you certainly want to play with the big three: the department, the Turnpike Authority, who manages the Garden State Parkway and the New Jersey Turnpike, as well as our partners at SJTA managing the Atlantic City Expressway. Next slide. What roads are covered? In total, just shy of 650 centerline miles. In order to be able to kind of work through the program, we said, you know what, we definitely want to cover areas where we know we have commercial vehicles. So interstates, limited access highways. I mean, For the department, we tied it to where we have our safety service patrol. Our interstates in North Jersey and North and South Jersey. For the Turnpike, we covered it stem to stern from the Delaware Memorial Bridge up to the connector with the George, each of the Pennsylvania crossings and the Newark Bay Hudson County extension. The Parkway for all 106 miles of the roadway that can accommodate trucks on the southern end. And for the Atlantic City Expressway, their main line from where they connect to Route 42 down, as well as the Brigantine connection. The next slide. So what are we doing, right? So we talked about who we're working with. We're talking about what roads are covered. Now we're talking about what we're doing. If you think about it, there are a lot of products out there that regular commuters use, right? You know, we don't have a poll here, but you know, you can think to yourself, I use Waze, or I use Google, or I signed up for, and this is a plug, I signed up for 511's personal traveler service alerts, where I can get text messages or emails on a daily basis to remind me what my traffic is going to be like when I leave work or when I go to work. Well, there's one big piece of the puzzle missing. Always promote the programs that you're working on. There's one big piece of the puzzle that's missing, and that's the commercial vehicle industry. These are vehicles that are the lifeblood of the economy. They are moving everything that you bought from Amazon last night that's going to be waiting for you on your doorstep when you get home. These are the vehicles that are bringing life-saving medicines. I remember one conversation Assistant Commissioner Tenard and I had last winter during the pandemic when the Office of Emergency Management reached out to us and asked us to try and coordinate the delivery of vaccines from airports to distribution centers. These are commercial vehicles. This is what they bring. They bring life to the economy. They bring life to all of us. And so we need to get information out to them about what's happening on our roadways. So what are we doing? We're sending them information about sudden slowdowns, where traffic congestion is all of a sudden popping up in front of them. And where they've got regular congestion, we're also letting them know. We don't want to have crashes where traffic stops up ahead and then vehicles continue at their speed. We want to give them advanced warning as to what's in front of them. Next slide. And so as far as how's it done? I believe I'm handing this over to Amy Salerno from INRIX.
It's Amy Lopez, but Salerno's great.
You know what? There are too many Amy's. Sorry about that.
Yeah, just, that's great. So just for a quick background. So first of all, thanks everyone for, having us here today and talking a little bit about the commercial motor vehicle alerts. We're super excited to be working with New Jersey and agencies across the state. So New Jersey DOT has been a very long time customer of INRIX and purchasing our real-time data. I think New Jersey was the first, what we refer to as all-in-state, buying our real-time data across the state. And again, has been a long-time partner of INRIX. So we were thrilled when DriveWise became a partner of ours to further make use of our data to help increase safety on the highways in the state and hopefully in more states. So what we're doing specifically regarding commercial motor vehicle alerts is that we provide our traffic APIs in real time, and this includes location and details for sudden slowdowns, congestion events, road closures on the corridors that New Jersey and the other agencies have selected. DriveWise takes this API to geolocate active events and share a single notification with truck drivers as they approach the event in the direction that they're traveling. Now, New Jersey DOT and the other agencies have set the configuration parameters for the service in the region that include severity thresholds and trigger warnings. And our colleague Mark can get a little bit more detail about the thresholds and trigger warnings in a few slides. So only events that meet or exceed those thresholds of severity would be sent out to drivers. So New Jersey DOT also has the option to include simple messaging or agency-sponsored messages that include emergency weather-related restrictions. And we just so happen to have a use case to share with you all in a couple of slides related to a recent nor'easter. And the messages that the agency send are kept short to prevent driver distraction, but they show up on their ELD, the in-cab ELD, and they show up within an app if the driver's downloaded the app. So with that, I will hand it over to Mark, I believe, for the next slide. Oh, no,
Okay.
actually, it's back to Sal, right?
Okay.
Sorry, Mark.
I'll be
okay.
Mark for this slide.
That's
and I'm
fine.
going to apologize to Amy Lopez. Amy Salerno is a former traffic reporter friend of mine who reached out over the weekend, so that I have Amy Salerno on the brain. But I apologize, Amy Lopez from INRIX.
That's
So
okay. I just called you Mark, so we're even
okay.
now, Sal.
Can you tell we prepared for this? So what are we getting, right? We pay for the service. You know, we expect the data to be there, but we also want to see what we're getting. So what we had asked for and gotten was a dashboard to be able to provide us with a listing of where the data alerts were being sent out to the various commercial vehicles. So it's a little bit small. Be more than happy to give anybody a walkthrough outside of the teams, that is, of the alert platform that we get. It shows congestion alerts that were sent, sudden slowdown alerts that were get. It shows which roadways these alerts and congestion alerts were sent on, and by time of day, by frequency, how long they were sent out. And so it gives you the perspective of which roadways are seeing a lot of commercial traffic. Now you can kind of see inside the bottom slide, sort of that heat map, that infographic, and you can certainly tell the shape of the turnpike as it crawls from southern New Jersey up and across and into the New York metropolitan area. Next slide. So how long did it take? You know, we've had a couple of questions as far as, well, did it take long? How was the vendor in working with you? I'm going to be quite honest. When this first came up, Director Nicole Minatoli over at Multimodal and I, we were having the conversation when it was brought to our attention that this product was available. And so we kind of kept going back and forth, and it was, well, this is freight. This is a trucking industry. It's like, well, this is real-time alerts. So this is actually, mobility information. And so it all happened at the beginning of the pandemic. So what wound up happening was, after some back and forths, we agreed that it would come out of mobility. And then we really started focusing on, when do we want to start putting this out? We decided that we would work on it once the things started slowing down. We got through the majority of our work, of course, our own business unit personnel items as they related to the COVID pandemic. And so last October, we started out with a test section, just shy of 60 miles, covering 7642 in the Atlantic City Expressway, just to see how the system worked and how it was deployed. After about a week or so, we said, you know what, it's time to add some of the bigger roads. And we added the entirety of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. And then following that, we activated all the rest of the state DOT covered roadways. Looking at it, watching the alerts, we wound up having weekly, if not bi-weekly, conversations with INRIX, with DriveWise, with our teams, looking at the alerts as they came through, tweaking some of the things. There was one thing where we noticed there was one roadway section which was consistently getting a significant number of alerts. Well, we want to make sure we're not bombarding people, so DriveWise went into the system, tweaked it a little bit, and now it's at an appropriate level. Next slide.
Hey, Sal, can I chime in with a question? No. Okay, well, I'm going to anyway. Do the alerts include commercial motor vehicle restrictions, be it temporary or permanent?
So I'll get to that in the second part of the presentation. Okay. So some of the short-term steps, we've, again, this sort of goes along the lines of, proof is in the pudding. We asked for and received demo accounts. We purchased, the kind of mounting brackets that you see in your vehicles whenever you want to put your vehicle in it, the little clampy things. And we gave our demo accounts to our Safety Service Patrol drivers, as well as to Turnpike and Atlantic City Expressway personnel, to be able to see the program in motion, to see how it's working. A bit of a field QA/QC, as you would. We also are going to start comparing the data to our TMC data. What is being entered by our staff either in Cherry Hills Operations Center or at the Statewide Traffic Management Center up in Woodbridge. Long term, we want to look at what else we can do. We have over 300,000 data points, either in the straight line diagram or in TAMs. things such as high rollover locations, low bridge, and the like, to be able to send that to the in-cab messaging system. Next slide. Oh, the fun part. Here we go. This is one of those where were you, right? We're supposed to get this massive nor'easter, and everybody's hunkered down. This was the 3 inches or 4 inches per hour that was going to bury Boston, New Jersey, one of many states that were putting in commercial vehicle restrictions. I believe the commissioner and the colonel had recently done a social media outreach explaining the value of commercial vehicle restrictions as well as the intent. It's not meant to punish anyone. It's meant to keep our roadways safe and our roadways open during large-scale weather events. So we were expected to get buried under a bomb cyclone, plain and simple. And so what wound up happening was, we wanted to make sure that we got the word out to our partners, and recognizing the relationship we had with Amy Lopez and Mark Nichols from DriveWise, we started to say, what else could we do? And with that, I'm going to pass it along to Amy to go through what we did.
So briefly, I think the next slide. Yeah, there we go. So Sal called me around 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and he wanted to know if it was possible to send out emergency alerts, in New Jersey for the upcoming nor'easter to keep trucks off the road. And I said, sure, we can do that. And he's like, okay, great. But can you do it for every state on the East Coast that's going to be impacted by the storm, even if they're not paying you to do it? And I said, for you, Sal, of course, we'll make it happen. But let me call my buddy Mark first and make sure that Mark is willing to do it as well. So I quickly called Mark, and he said, yeah, of course, let's do it. This is a a serious storm. We want to keep people safe. It's an opportunity to save some lives, and let's do the right thing. And so then we also coordinated with Denise Markow at the Eastern Transportation Coalition, who she reached out to the other states individually to let their operation centers know what was happening. And we coordinated here internally, and it was about 90 minutes to 2 hours later from the time we got Sal's call until the time that 11 states were notified. And that notification was active throughout the weekend for about 30 hours. So for more details, I will actually now hand it over to Mark Nichols from DriveWise, and not back to Sal.
Thanks, Amy Lopez. I appreciate that. Hey, thanks for letting me speak to everyone. As you can tell, I'm down in North Carolina, so I'm south of Mason-Dixon, so my accent's a little southern, but put up with me, guys. Just a little background on DriveWise. We're North America's largest connected truck network with a reach of approximately 2.8 million trucks. Now, not all of those 2.8 million trucks are paying customers, but this is important to note. They can download the DriveWise app to a compatible device and receive the alerts. So you don't have to be paying for the pre-clear to receive the alerts. And to me, that's important for drivers to know they can sign up and get this important messages. This is done all through, Amy referred to the ELD, so let me describe that real quick. Through the DriveWise app, so we have an app that resides on the electronic logging device, which is referred to as the ELD by the drivers and carriers. The ELD is the primary source of communication for that driver. It's the brain in that cab. So everything they get from hours of service that they have to record and send to the FMCSA, to their origin destination, to fuel, to manifest, to driver safety notification, and to bypass weigh station is in that electronic logging device. So just wanted to set that point. So let me tell a little story real quick. So here we go. I get the information from our great partners with NRIX, with my colleague Amy and Sal, saying, hey, we need some help. Can you alert some trucks? And I said, absolutely, you betcha, hang on. So we immediately started forth with a plan of what kind of message are we going to deliver. And we want something simple, right? We want something a driver can refer to, but not have to drill down into. So we came up with a very simple message, major winter storm, call 511 for closures. And to us, that would resonate good with the driver, and they could make a good educated decision on, this must be serious. It's coming from my electronic logging device. I need to be careful and make a good decision whether to proceed, pull over, or check my roads before I move forward. So they made a profound decision to do that. The good thing about this is we set it up at the state lines for all traffic northbound from Virginia, from North Carolina, all north, and coming from the west into the northeast states, from Pennsylvania, et cetera, coming basically north and east. And here's some of the locations that we created this. Now, to create a message, it was very simple for us. We use Google Earth, but we use geofence. We basically draw a bracket around a location of longitude and latitude. And as the vehicle's GPS comes close to that, it sets that device off as it passes the fence and notifies the driver of the message. Very, very simple for us. Here's what was shocking. And we were able to cover this pretty quickly. From an old trooper standpoint, we did real good in a short period of time. But 4,800 trucks approximately were notified of that information. Now that tells me we had 4,800 tractor trailers that qualify for hours of service that were notified of this storm. So the important thing there is, wow, if there were that many trucks on the road, hopefully they pulled over and made an educated decision whether to proceed north or not, or go ahead and find a place, a truck parking facility that they could hunker down, as the old saying is, and ride the storm out. Why is it important to let these trucks know? They have hours of service. And if those hours of service are met by congestion or delays sitting on the roadway, they've got to find another place to bed down immediately to shut that truck down, because they can only drive so many hours in a day, and they have on-duty and off-duty driver status. And this is very, very important to the CSA scores of the drivers and the performance of the drivers, as well as the fatigue of that driver. So this was important to us. Get the message out. We sent it out. It was very, very clear from us what we wanted to do. But it was amazing that we still delivered to 4,800 trucks. I mean, that's remarkable in my, being an old trooper. Now, remember what Sal said about trucks. It was very important. Stern to bow, that truck is every bit of 70 feet long in most cases. 53-foot trailers added to the tractor. You've got a long vehicle out there, and they weigh 80,000 pounds as the average weight. Now, on a good day, it takes the length of a football field to stop a tractor trailer at 55 miles per hour. Now, you increase ice and snow to that situation, and if they're still traveling at a variable speed, you're going to increase that distance to about a football field and a half to maybe two football fields. Not only that, you add that vehicle to jackknife, you've increased everything that you're trying to prevent. You've closed all your roadways. So the trucks are so important. They deliver everything we want, but weather will affect these trucks. And we were able to get these messages out very, very quickly. If you'll go to the next slide, we can kind of show you what we did here. So what we do is we create a fence, and we, set it well in advance of interchanges or whatever. And this is just a little snapshot of some of the ones that we were preparing that we can create in a matter of seconds. Now, it takes about 30 minutes from the time we create the fence to get into the trucks for them to start seeing the messages. But this was a prime example of what we did here during this particular snowstorm. Not only that, we did a similar situation for the Tennessee TDOT down there. My friends with Tennessee, as well as Arkansas, had called us when the Tennessee bridge went out and the cracks appeared. We had to let trucks know, and we started notifying them at the state line of the situation. Same situation here. We tried to let the trucks know of a severe storm ahead, and we were able to do that. But this right here represents, like New Jersey, 516 notifications that went on I-295 northbound. Those were trucks that were still moving ahead. One of the other things I wanted to mention is we've been able to do this at another location when the when the Louisiana bridge went out. I apologize for that. To Texas, we were able to notify trucks there too. So this has been 3 times that we've done it, as well as helped Virginia during the ice storm. but that we had the most alerts with New Jersey that I have ever seen. I know we covered a lot of states, but that tells me we still had trucks in motion. One last thing I want to say, Sal, is, you know, notifications on trucks slowing down, congestion, we're trying to give them a heads up. They don't have co-drivers anymore due to trying to find truck drivers is hard enough, and law enforcement, we can't recruit enough. But if you've got technology that will tell that driver, and I've always said this, I've worked many collisions out there in work zones and everything else. I hope I never have to do that again in my life. But when that driver would come up, he said, if I would have just known what was ahead, I could have prepared to stop 80,000 pounds of steel moving. Now we have the capabilities to do that. Now we can reach up, we can change driver behavior, we can see some kind of noted behavior that the driver reacted, whether they gear down, slow down, brake. It's a reaction, and that's what we're looking for. And I always taught driver instruction for pursuit and precision driving with the patrol. And I always said, if I can get inside that trooper's head and let him know what's ahead around that curve, I can prevent them from being killed possibly. Same thing we're applying here to this truck driver. Airplanes have it. The pilots know what's appearing on radar. They have good communications. Now we're reaching into what moves America, and that's the truck, and delivers America's goods and supply chain. We're going to notify that driver what's ahead. We're going to let them make good, educated decisions on to slow down and prepare to stop that vehicle. So I'll pass it back to you, Sal, and thank you for letting me present on this right here. We have a lot of good technology. We're moving forward every day, and I encourage you to reach for the stars for technology. It's out there. Don't be afraid of it. It will save lives, and we're using it in the law enforcement realm as well. So thank you.
Major, thank you. Amy, thank you very much. And I guess we'll pass along and see if anyone has any questions.
Just some smart Alex saying that the trucks might have been the same truck driving through multiple locations, but so probably the 4,800 trucks weren't discrete trucks, but I don't think, you know, I'm not sure how much that actually matters.
I mean, think about it, Helene. Mark, I don't know if you want to address that.
Was that a question or a comment? I'm sorry.
Just a comment.
So I guess, is it possible, Mark, that a tractor trailer or commercial vehicle was driving, let's say they got in Pennsylvania, and in the entire time frame, they got multiple notifications as they crossed each one of these geofence locations?
It could, but more than likely carrying freight like it is today, they pulled over. Those were probably independent drivers that were hitting these fences because they were already starting out from possibly Pennsylvania traveling north and then shut down. It could be, I can't honestly say, but I would know that if I was the owner of a truck or even independent owner and I got the first message, because it's so important to that electronic logging device, gang, that is the meat and potatoes in these truck drivers. If they get it, they know it's the real deal. Something is up and I need to use caution. And they will not risk carrying that truck out there because it affects their CDL, their hours of service, their points, and their CSA score. And I think our friends at FMCSA would agree. It's detrimental for them to proceed in a hazard area. They will take precautions in part.
Mark, isn't it true also that you drew fences at ports of entry, so it's not like it was miles long on a highway, so it's likely that those are individual alerts.
I would think so, Amy, and I agree with you because we drew them at the port of entry in the state line, and once that truck passes that, we didn't create other additional fences, as you mentioned, throughout the state to capture any data. It was just a one-time message. Hey, you're danger, Will Robinson, you're entering it right here. You know, if you go forward, it's on you because we've tried everything to negate collisions and people being injured. So. But that, I just wanted to say that's a prime example. Sal, he's been a great work with, gang. I love Mr. Sal and Miss Amy here. This is a prime example of what we're doing to change driver behavior, notify drivers of situations. But this could be anything. This could be a major event. You have to close down the interstates. You have, God forbid, an aircraft collision or a crash, or we have a terrorist event in the U.S. We can get messages out. We can direct trucks to where they need to be. during the pandemic. We told them of locations where rest areas were open. Many of the rest areas across the country closed, but we could tell them where they could get safe haven to park. Truck parking is tremendous. Their hours of service expire and they're stuck in a major metropolitan area with no place to park. That's detrimental to the driver, to the city, and to the highway, to the motorists. So many things we can do with this. We're just glad to help our great partnership with New Jersey. We appreciate the opportunity to work with them. And of course, our great partnership with Miss Amy Lopez with NRICS. So pass it back to you, Mr. Sal.
Thanks. Amanda?
Okay, thank you very much, Sal, Amy, and Mark. That was great. So now it's time for our second feature presentation. Please welcome the Assistant Commissioner of Transportation, Operations, Systems, and Support, Mr. Andrew Tennard.
Thanks, Amanda. And before I get started, I want to send a little shout out to Amy, Mark, and Sal. I was deeply involved in that storm. I was getting a little, flashbacks of conferences I was having with the commissioner and commissioners of all those states when we were trying to apply our restrictions in a uniformed, logical way. So good on you guys. It's great that we can kind of continue to leverage those kinds of technologies to get the word out. So I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me present today. Before I jump into this, I hope everyone's well as we start to come out of the COVID experience. I don't know about everybody, but over the last couple of years, I didn't wear a suit very much, but I saw what was on the schedule today, and I assumed I'd be down in the MOB, seeing people in person in a hybrid. So I put a suit and tie on again, and if you can't figure it out on the screen, I actually look really sharp, I have to say. So take my word for it.
Looking good.
Thank you. All right, so on behalf of the commissioner and the governor's office and a few other people I'll get into, it's really exciting to share something really quite different, I think. Throughout this meeting and kind of touching on a lot of the aspects that you all work on, that we work on together in terms of equity, in terms of sustainability, in terms of new technology. I think this Trenton Moves project is going to check off a lot of those boxes. I'll start off. This is very much still in the concept phase. But it's getting a lot of traction, a lot of attention right away because it's actually a pretty exciting project. So next slide, please. We'll jump into it. So as I was getting ready for this, I usually recall my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Fleischer, who you guys will remember. We all learned how to be little newspaper people and journalists, and you got to answer those key questions, right? The who, where, what, why, and how. So I want to start off with the why. I like to do that. Why are we doing this? And there's really 2 stories that kind of drew me into this, if you can bear with me. The first was a few years ago at an ITS New Jersey meeting. We were gathered, way before COVID. And one of the guest speakers right in the beginning of the meeting was a mother who was sharing the story about her daughter. Her daughter is an adult, she was at adult age, and she was sharing that her daughter had been blind since birth. And she raised her daughter excellent academics, completely adjusted and very, very much effective, living on her own in her own apartment, had a great job and everything. But the mother's frustration and challenge to the audience of about 120 transportation professionals was, I still have to drive my daughter to and from work and drive my daughter to a lot of places. And and she challenged us, if you really want to do something, if you really want to fix something, you guys should work on that. And that had a pretty big impact on me. And I remembered that we talk a lot about infrastructure and pavements and technology, but Are we really kind of factoring in all different types of people in terms of mobility and transportation? And that's when the mobility equity started to kind of percolate in my mind. The second big impact was late last year. I had a great opportunity to go to training, AASHTO training down in Washington, D.C. And the president of AASHTO, near the end of the class, got up in front, and she challenged our class to kind of close our eyes and think back to when we were children. And she said, do you remember when you were children and the first time you started to ride a bike and ride that bike off, away from your house, away from, around the neighborhood, and the freedom that you felt when you can kind of like, start to break away from the eyes of your parents and whoever and move around outside of things. And I was like, yep, I fondly remember that. And I'm sure a lot of you do too. And then she said, now remember when you were a teenager and you got your driver's license and your parents let you use the car for the first time by yourself to go wherever. I had to go pick up my younger brothers. And the freedom you felt operating this vehicle for the first time and, moving along the road and looking through your mirrors and doing all those checks, but the freedom of being able to kind of move around. And that also had an impact on me, because what Trenton Moves is starting to address is the people who don't have that luxury. And I found this little slide here. We've learned a lot over the last couple of years. We have a lot of discussions about equality and equity, and I'm sure most people have seen this, slide or something similar to it, which shows the difference between equality and equity. But this one grabbed my eyes because what are we trying to achieve in Trenton Moves is obviously equity, but taking that fence down that allows people to get on the field and play. If you think about it, we're all the players on that field or the people in the stands, not outside that fence. Me personally, my biggest challenge when I have to think about my mobility or my family's mobility is which of the 3 cars am I going to drive in my driveway to go wherever I go, right? ShopRite, the movies, or something like that. But actually in Trenton, our state capital, the city of our state capital, over 70% of the residents have 1 or less cars. Think about that. So 1 or less cars. Many people don't have any cars. And if you live in our state, if you live in our country, for the most part, if you don't have a car, or you can't afford a car, you don't have your driver's license, whatever, or you're not able to drive because you're blind or have some other physical limitation that doesn't allow you to drive, you're really at a big disadvantage. And we don't talk enough about that. And the Trenton Moves is an exciting project to start to not only address the equity, but the equity that leads to the liberation of getting people to move around. So I don't know who's controlling the slides here.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, I hit something that I was not supposed to hit, of course. Hang on one moment.
I was on such a roll too, Amanda.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I jinxed myself earlier and I said I'm going to do something that I'm not supposed to do, and of course I did that. Hang on 1 second, everybody. My apologies.
You were doing really well.
I know.
Yeah, your track record this time was almost perfect. Yeah.
I think Amanda's actually building suspense.
I have too many windows open, and I.
Now we all get to look at what's on Amanda's desktop.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry. Let me go down to where I'm supposed to be, and then present. All right, we back?
We're back. Yes, thank you. Yep, stay on this slide. Good. So that was the why. Hopefully that sets the stage of why this is important. It's really trying to be another New Jersey first. It's got a lot of momentum. So the what? So the Trenton Moves project, we hope to deploy, not have meetings, not to, but actually deploy a safe, equitable, affordable, sustainable, on-demand transportation system. Next thing here. Where? Trenton. And we have some questions about this. Well, why'd you guys pick Trenton? A couple reasons. One, it's right here in our backyard from DOT. The other partners that are working on this at a high level, the governor's office is very involved in this. And Princeton University is also greatly involved in this. So the location is ideal for that. The geography of Trenton is also favorable. It's not, in terms of cities, it's about 90,000 residents. And the geography is not overwhelming. It's a fairly manageable place to start off with. And, I like to say, well, why not Trenton? So we're going to start off there, but we have intentions to certainly, if it's successful, and we believe it will be, to move beyond Trenton. Next. When? Like I said, we're just in the concept phase now, starting to put some things together. I'll get into that a little bit, but we hope to have some people riding in the beginning of these systems, hopefully in early 2024. Next. So who's involved? I mentioned this already, but the big one in the lead is the city of Trenton, the mayor and his staff, also Mercer County, the state at the governor's office level, working very, very closely with us, and the DOT and the governor's office together, as well as Professor Alan Kornhauser and some students and former students from Princeton. The graph on the left is just to kind of give a visual of what this may look like. That is, I just picked that off the internet as to, what a vehicle may look like. It's certainly not meant to say what it will be. Okay, next slide, please. All right, the how. So really, there's kind of three big steps. The first, create a welcoming environment. And that's a little bit of what we're trying to do today, is to paint that vision within the communities and the neighborhoods. We're really kind of excited. We've had some exposure already to different parts of the community and have some phenomenal feedback and real positive opinions about how to go forward. So we're trying to build and foster that support at the local level. That's going on now. We're just getting started with it. Next part. Step number two, in a big sense, entice technology companies to come and work with us. We hope to form a public-private partnership, PPP, and we'll get into that a little bit. But we're starting to, kind of look across the landscape to see who this would be. What does this mean, right? So there's been, for a few decades now, a lot of investment by a lot of companies in this technology. And what do I mean by the technology? So we expect this to be eventually an autonomous electric type vehicle, autonomous meaning driverless. So what really hasn't happened on a large scale yet is to bring that out to the public and let the public start to utilize this. But we feel, the time is now, and the place to do it is here in New Jersey and in our state capital, and get it going. So really our job is to try to bridge a lot of the technology that's been developed already, bring it to that next level where people feel comfortable and confident we can actually employ it, deploy it out into the public. All right, next one. And then talk about the, how we get things going. So some infrastructure funding, some things that we might have to look at to improve to make this work possible. However, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, well, why don't you just improve the infrastructure? What I think is different about this effort, when you look at a shuttle program, an autonomous vehicle shuttle program, for the most part, it's utilizing our existing infrastructure. What do I mean by that? Well, we're not going to build a monorail or all kinds of special infrastructure things. You know, the vehicles have to basically work on the existing roads that are in the city of Trenton. And as we move beyond Trenton, they have to work on our existing infrastructure. And I personally think that's really a great way to go and the right way we ought to be thinking. Because when you start to, I mean, we're all very familiar with the cost of infrastructure, and, you know, a lot of people quickly go down, well, you have to build all this stuff. Not really. You know, maybe we have to paint some lines and put up a fresh sign, you know, make sure the curb is in good shape. But, you know, we don't have to kind of build a whole separate network to make this happen, or we don't want to, because that kind of defeats the purpose. All right, next slide, please. So creating a welcome environment. Next click, Amanda. We see this, I've mentioned the 90,000 residents of Trenton. And as we start to build out, and if you can just click this a few times, yep. We're gonna create a little upside down pyramid. It's very important that, and one more. There you go. It's very important. We kind of have this upside down pyramid here. We're trying very much to put the city, the residents of Trenton at the top of the pyramid. It is for them. We're very sensitive and trying to be very careful. We don't want to, you know, create something and kind of shove it onto the city of Trenton. So we're taking a lot of time to do this community outreach. The vision is to have about 50 kiosks throughout the city. I'll have a map of that in a little bit, and saturate the city of Trenton eventually with 100 or so autonomous vehicles that would be, you know, this system. That's what it is. So we are, you know, starting to have conversations with the housing authority, with seniors, with the faith community, with schools, kind of taking it that way and really building that support at the local level. We want to build a welcoming environment for the technology companies to want to come here to New Jersey, want to come to Trenton, and you know, be a good partner with us and get this off the ground. And instead of just doing this on, you know, test tracks or in laboratories, actually put it out in the street and start to change people's lives for the better. Okay, next slide, please. Just to build on that a little bit more, in the top right, we think the schools are going to play a big impact. One of the early conversations we had was with the superintendent of Trenton Schools. It was a great conversation, and we probably talked for maybe a couple minutes, and he immediately had it. In fact, he opened our eyes to a problem that this could solve or help solve or mitigate anyway that he's having. They, you know, like a lot of communities, don't have enough bus drivers to get kids to school. And he immediately saw, like, well, if this could work and we can get, you know, the kids on this to get to school, that would help his, you know, efforts a lot. So there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of kids who don't go to school because they can't get a ride. The buses, you know, there's not enough buses. In Trenton, the limitation is if you live inside, if the only way you get a bus is if you are 2 miles or more away from your school. Well, you know, 2 miles is a long way to go, especially if it's, you know, snowing or raining. So there's a lot of kids who don't go to school, and that's a problem. And that's a problem for all of us. And we should work on trying to fix that. And perhaps this Trenton Moves project can make a big dent into that and really improve that. Seniors, there's a lot of seniors who really, some of them never drove in their lives, and they have a tough time getting to the doctors, getting to the food store, getting to the places that they need to go. So we could, you know, we have a real opportunity to open up that transportation mobility, empower, you know, these disadvantaged communities to be able to move around, really give that transportation freedom to people so that they can get to work and they can get to the things that we all take for granted. Okay, next slide, please. There has been tremendous government support, and I'm sure some people know about it. If you don't, back at December, there was a great press release at the governor's office level, and the DOT put out a RFEI, request for expressions of interest. That closed in mid-January, no, maybe mid-February, and we have over 20 respondents to the RFEI that we're going through now. It's not anything as far as procurement. There's no, expectation that we would go with any of those companies or consulting firms, but it is helping us kind of learn more about how people who are working in this technology field view this and could possibly help us. On the right is the beginning. I'm going to show a few maps of this, but these operational design domains, ODDs. The first one, if you can pick it out, is kind of in blue, starting at the DOT and then extending on through the city. So I'll talk more about that. Why don't we go to the next slide? So number two, eventually through a competitive process, we want to create a PPP. So what is the private partnerships? A few clicks here, Amanda. Sure. On the private side, we hope that they can contribute, whoever it may be, and maybe a few firms contribute, the safe, high quality, affordable, sustainable, the technology that they work on. Be able to do it on demand, starting off with about 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, 350 days a year, and eventually move up to 24 hours a day, 350 days a year. It's hopefully obvious. We expect these to be electric vehicles for the sustainability part, and it will only work if it's affordable, low cost in production, low cost in operation, and not, it's definitely within the means of the ridership to be able to afford this. So that's on the private side. On the public side, partner with the governments, and this creates that equity, mobility for all. The affordability, it's going to be our job to work with our partners to make sure that the price points are reasonable and workable for the citizenship. And further on sustainability, if it makes sense, design a system that perhaps ride sharing would be worked into this. Okay, another click. Okay, so number three, upfront infrastructure and funding. So we another good news. Back in February, the city of Trenton applied for and received a startup grant from the DOT of about $5 million. So we're kind of starting to work with the city on how to do that. But once we get going, how do we see this kind of shaping out? So acclimation of the citizens using about those 100 vehicles. What does the acclimation mean? So this is really change management. It's kind of changing things. And there's a lot of questions about, well, how is this ultimately going to work? Am I really going to ride in a vehicle that doesn't have a driver eventually? I would say, the answer is, yeah, we need to move in this direction. In fact, if this, once we kind of work out all the kinks and the details, I look forward to riding in an autonomous vehicle. Why? Well, an autonomous vehicle is driven by a computer that doesn't get tired and doesn't drink and doesn't text or get distracted. And an autonomous vehicle won't speed. So when we think about the causes of our crashes, the vast majority of them are caused by a human fallibility. So if we can start to move in a direction that we have a machine that is safer than a human being, that's the way to go. So that's the acclimation part that we have to work on. Realistically, we do see that we're going to have we'll call it a safety host, like a person who's assigned to the vehicle for about 2 years to help get people acclimated to this new technology. That's just part of the change that has to happen. A good analogy I heard is back when elevators were first created, People were very reluctant to get on an elevator. What do you mean this thing's going to take me up to 100 floors? I don't believe it. I don't trust it. And elevators used to have an operator on board that used to take people and feel comfortable there's someone who's operating this thing. Well, no, we all get on elevators now and there's no operator there. So that's why we kind of envision this happening. Next click. Physical improvements, I touched on this already. So this may be, we have to look around at some of the existing infrastructure and where it makes sense. Maybe we have to brighten up some of the striping in the roadway, put up new signs, repair some curbing, things that are going to, make this system more, more effective. Next click here. And you can go to the next couple, Amanda, please. So what we envision is a few things here. Again, think of about 100 vehicles saturating the city. We'll set up, hopefully, a tech company will set up a garage, an operations center somewhere in the city of Trenton where the vehicles can be serviced, cleaned. They'll get their electric charging, get their software upgrades or, whatever these things are going to require. About 50 kiosks throughout the city. These will be some of the places that residents can go and use, some type of, summons technology to have a shuttle come pick them up. I'll show a map here again in another second. I already touched on some of the curb and sign improvement and some intersection improvements. So next slide, please. Oh, and some contingency funding. Yep. So the evolving ODDs, it's not odds. I should have fixed that. It's ODDs. So here's just a map. The first proof of concept, what we see is actually trying to work out some of the functionality at the DOT headquarters campus. That's what you're looking at here. If we can kind of, get some willing participants, with our technology vendor to do this kind of off-road, and then we start to take baby steps, and we go out to Parkway Avenue and Lower Ferry Road, and we get I don't know, 1,000, 5,000 successful trips without incident. We start to rack up some of that success, learn along the way. So that's what we see as kind of the first baby step here. Next slide. And then to, if that's successful or when it's successful, is to move on and start to, go into the city from the DOT. One of the ones we're really excited to start to target is from the Trenton train station to the State House. That's a classic missing mile here in New Jersey. We don't have good ways to take people. We're trying to encourage them to take transit, and they do, into Trenton train station from all over the state. But there's no great way for them to get from that to the State House to do a lot of work. So we envision this program, this system, to close that gap, and then to continue to expand around the city, which is the next slide, please. So this is a depiction of the ODDs throughout the city, and you can start to see the black dots are where, at least conceptually, we can see some of the kiosks being set up, and then the streets to kind of take it around the network. So envision this: 50 kiosks, about 100 or more autonomous shuttles that hold 6 to 8 passengers. Really starts to move people around much more effectively and efficiently and safely around the city of Trenton. And once we kind of get all that done, we think that this can be expandable, replicated other parts of New Jersey and eventually around the country. Next slide. And that's what this is. So hopefully, the latter part of this decade, we can start to look at doing this down in Camden and Newark and New Brunswick and Atlantic City, and even the rest of Mercer County and other places. So it becomes commonplace, and it becomes a desired system to, move everyone around. Okay, I think the next slide is the last one. Yeah, so that's it. Just a picture of the kiosk, and again the full ODD depiction throughout the city, and that's what I have. So, questions? No questions. Okay.
Andrew, I have a quick question. This is Jennifer Marandino. What is this? You mentioned about 90,000 residents in that area. What is like the square mileage that you're looking at there?
Yeah, I think it's small, Jennifer. I want to say the footprint is something like I want to say 4.8 square miles. It's pretty small, very manageable.
So,
Yeah, I don't think you'll have any problem getting any volunteers to help, pilot that here at DOT.
All right, you're coming with me, Amanda.
I'm coming. I'm coming.
All right.
Amanda, I'm sorry, Andrew, Bob Signora. I had a question. The network that you showed in the map, is that primarily like county 500 routes and 600 routes around Trenton, or is it getting deeper into neighborhoods?
Yeah, it's both. It's definitely getting into neighborhoods, and it does touch on some of the county network as well.
Okay, thank you.
There is a question in the chat. It asks, would you consider the Njdot to West Trenton train station too?
Yeah, it's again, this is just conceptually to start off and try to shape discussions. That has come up before to include the West Trenton train station, and I see that as probably, assuming this ODD layout is what everyone agrees to go with first, that is probably the very first one we kind of do the extension out to the West Trenton train station as well. It makes total sense.
This is Andy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a fascinating, really great proposal. I'm really interested, Andrew, in the whole change management aspect to this. Have there been any particularly interesting feedback that you've all obtained so far?
So we kind of have been engaging with several of the students, through the superintendent, and there's a lot of excitement from the student level, with the professional educators seeing this as, possibly offsetting a lot of the transportation challenges they have. So that part of our outreach has been very positive. We've had some discussions and presentations at the senior housing complexes. And once this is kind of explained to those residents, there's great excitement because they see the challenges. Psychologically, they're very burdened trying to figure out, and it adds another layer of stress in their lives of how to get to certain places. And they see that this could really kind of open up their ability to be mobile in a much different way, a much more effective way. So I would say overall, Andy, it's been very, very positive with who we've talked to so far. But we're not unrealistic. I'm sure there's going to be some people out there who will want to kind of poke holes into this, and we'll just have, and we'll work through that. Everyone, we really want to have a lot of input as to how to do this.
Thank you.
I think Bob had his hand up again.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a follow-up question. The vendors that you've spoke to, or the private partners that might provide this service, do a lot of them have like an application platform via cell phone that they utilize to call up the unit?
Yeah, so I just want to be clear. It's a great question, Bob. We have not engaged anybody officially yet, or even unofficially yet. So we haven't had any discussions with any vendors. From the RFEI responses, that was one of the questions we asked in the RFEIs. How do you envision creating some type of technology or application or app that people can summons the car? And so far, they're all the ones I've seen so far that have come from technology companies, because we have RFEIs from consultants and other people, but the ones from the technology companies feel very confident that they either have it or they can easily develop it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Elkins.
Andrew, excellent presentation. Very excited about what you're pursuing. Under that 3P partnership, any discussion of working with major employment centers that may be out of Mercer County to establish standard links and routes and timing to enable folks that don't have cars to get to some jobs that they may not be accessible to?
Yes. So it's definitely envisioned. I think one of the major employers in the area now is Amazon. So, maybe if everything falls in right, we can have conversations with or figure out ways to bring people to their work at the, Amazon loading centers. But we absolutely hope that we can go beyond this ODD in downtown and continue to, expand this through the rest of the county, maybe go down into Burlington County where there's other employers that employ, the residents of Trenton, and be able to more easily and affordably bring people, back and forth to work. So yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Andrew, you have some questions here that I don't think you answered, but you might not even have the answers to these questions. You probably don't. Did you answer already how many people will be accommodated in each vehicle? I don't know if you have the answer.
So it's not definitive yet, but we see kind of the basic platform to be a shuttle that holds around 6 to 8 people.
Okay. There's another one. The vehicles will be hybrid or electric. I think you said electric.
Electric,
right?
yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. Does this provide real-time tracking of the vehicles? Is that one of the requirements of the system?
It absolutely is. Yeah, that'll be one of the basic requirements. Is there has to be kind of like an operations center that's monitoring, real time where every single vehicle is, monitoring the kiosks. There'll be two-way, emergency two-way communication from the vehicle to an operations center that will also be tied in with the police and the fire. So, yeah.
And Richard Rabinowitz wanted answers to these questions in an email. Amanda, I don't think we're planning on doing that. We are recording this session, Richard. So if you need to go back and look at it again, you should have the ability to do that. But I don't think we've made a plan to capture the answers to these questions in an email.
Correct.
And that's it for the questions. Brandy posted a link to the governor's press release about Trenton Move. And I think I covered all the questions. You answered the West Trenton train station / airport one, correct?
Correct. Yes, I did.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And then there was I saw something popped up about PDH credits. We're not offering PDH credits for this meeting. And I think that's it. So thank you very much, Andrew. We really appreciate that that presentation. And again, I apologize for the blip. Okay. So some quick reminders and announcements for everyone before we adjourn. As always, don't forget about our tech transfer website and the dedicated STIC page where you can find all of our STIC business, very interesting articles and meeting recordings and summaries. And an easy Google search for NJSTIC will get you there just fine if you don't want to type in the address here. Let's see. And don't forget that we have up to $100,000 of STIC incentive program funds available for each federal fiscal year. Helene has told me that the applications will likely be due sometime in August. And the link here has all of the resources that you need to get started. It explains what the program is, the selection criteria, eligible projects, how to apply, etc. In addition, and to ease the burden, my contract administrators and I have developed a set of guidelines on how the process works, how to authorize the funding, reporting requirements, and then how to close out the funding. So if and when you are selected for one of these grants, we will provide that with you and work with you and guide you along the way. And next, the 2022 Build a Better Mousetrap competition is underway with an entry deadline of May 1st. So please get your entries in. The link to that website is at the bottom of this slide. And I just wanted to highlight the last year's winners. We had 2 of them. One was a local winner, one was a state agency winner. So the first one was the inlet repair trailer submitted by Art Villano. He's the superintendent of public works in Montgomery Township. And the second winner was the tire centerline bracket, and that was submitted by Mark Franco with with New Jersey Transit's Bus Material and Technical Support Unit. And I also wanted to let everyone know that there is a webinar on the 23rd through our New Jersey LTAP program about innovating at the local public works level. So please share that with your local entities and encourage them to participate in the competition. It's really exciting to be able to highlight these individuals and their teams. Like we always say, it's always people on the front lines that come up with new and better ways of doing things. So these are 2 really great examples of that. So we're really looking forward to getting some great entries this year that you can, have your picture up here. You can be featured on a video like these 2 gentlemen were. So yeah, get your entries in. And if you have any questions about that, you can let me know and visit that website. Okay, so that's it for me. And I just wanted to ask Andy if he had any last words or anyone else.
Yes, just very briefly. Thank you, Amanda. I think today's meeting is really a classic example of what makes New Jersey STIC great. So you all saw it yourselves, the 2 hours worth of a great deal of information, lots of innovation, lots of partnership. So just great job by everyone, and thank you all for participating. Great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda and Andy.
No problem. Thank you, everybody, for coordinating with me and making this happen. Appreciate it. And the meeting recording will be up on the website in a few days or so. And that's it.
All right, good job. Thank you.
Thank you
very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stop recording.
Amanda, you'll say that participant.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Thanks.
Stop recording.